Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
Monsieur le Président, le Premier ministre aime beaucoup faire de beaux discours sur leur Sénat. Maintenant, dans les faits, c'est la même vieille recette libérale de nommer des amis. Son premier geste a été de nommer sans consultation le président. Par-dessus le marché, le président est unilingue. Monsieur le Président, peut-il s'entendre que le seul critère de sélection pour cette nomination, c'est d'être un grand chum du leader du gouvernement en Chambre?
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Comme mon honorable collègue sait très bien, nous avons entamé un nouveau processus pour nommer des sénateurs, un processus beaucoup plus transparent, beaucoup plus ouvert, où des Canadiens de partout pourront contribuer. Quant à la décision du Premier ministre de désigner un nouveau président du Sénat, nous avons choisi quelqu'un d'une très grande intégrité, un parlementaire de longue expérience, et je dois vous dire, Monsieur le Président, la première fois que nous avons la chance d'avoir quelqu'un de Terre-Neuve et Labrador à présider une chambre de ce Parlement.
Honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
Monsieur le Président, ce que je comprends, c'est qu'un chum, c'est un chum. Monsieur le Président, pour le leader du gouvernement, c'est la saison de la chasse aux sorcières. Hier, la présidente du conseil d'administration de Poste Canada est venue contrecarrer les plans du gouvernement de congédier des Canadiens de qualité. En effet, Mme Matthews a affirmé que le président directeur général de Poste Canada, M. Deepak Chopra, a été choisi à la suite d'un processus rigoureux. Il devrait être félicité et non humilié. Est-ce que le leader du gouvernement va poursuivre son stratagème pour, encore une fois, nommer des amis du Parti libéral?
Honorable député en Chambre.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, j'aime bien mon honorable collègue en face, mais qui nous parle de nommer des amis à des postes gouvernementaux, c'est un peu riche. En ce qui a trait de la nomination dont il a décrit, je dois vous dire, Monsieur le Président, que notre inquiétude était toujours basée sur un processus entamé par son gouvernement que nous avons trouvé abusif. Et la démarche que nous avons prise, c'est de rendre le processus de nomination plus transparent, plus ouvert. Et d'ailleurs, si des Canadiens qui ont été nommés par un processus que nous avons jugé comme étant le mauvais processus, désirent réappliquer, ils seront considérés. C'est ça qui était dans ma lettre. Et je suis surpris que le président du Conseil, par contre, a décidé de rendre public le nom des personnes qui ont reçu les lettres, parce que dans aucun moment, nous avons rendu public les noms de personnes qui que ce soit.
I now recognize someone who's been of enormous assistance to me in the last few days, the honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, we have already seen the Liberals' inability to manage costs related to resettling refugees, with their campaign promise of $250 million ballooning to over $1 billion. And now we know why. Former Liberal MP Denis Coderre has found a way to use money meant for resettlement to take care of his friend with an $1,800 a day consultant's fee. This is money that could actually go to help refugees. Mr. Speaker, the City of Toronto has employed 4 people for the same amount. What steps will the government take to ensure that federal tax dollars are being spent on the world's most vulnerable instead of on high-priced Liberal friends?
The Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I was unaware of this point regarding Denis Coderre, but I will look into that immediately. And I just want to say that my colleague, the Minister of Health, and I, and the Minister of Defense were with the Prime Minister and 2 opposition colleagues last night, and it was a wonderful, wonderful evening to greet the first refugees in an Air Force plane to arrive in Toronto. It was a wonderful night for all Canadians to celebrate.
Honourable member for Regina Capel.
Well, I just hope that Mr. Coderre's friend wasn't there and on the clock. Mr. Speaker, as it stands now, the only vote the Liberals are planning on holding on changes to the electoral process is a vote in this House where they can use their majority to get their preferred outcome. Only 184 Liberals will get the final say on how 30 million Canadians choose their next government. The Prime Minister has used language like strong and broad consultations when talking about electoral reform, but we all know that the ultimate way of consulting Canadians is through a referendum, where every Canadian has the right to be heard. Why would the government settle for anything less than the best and hold a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, as I've been clear in this House all week, we will convene an all-party committee to review the process and to ensure that it's a collaborative one, a thoughtful one. We believe decisions on this issue deserve to be approached in such a manner, and I look forward to working with my colleagues opposite to make sure that the next electoral system we introduce makes sure that every vote counts.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Ajax said this week that to presume the outcome of consultations on electoral reform is nonsense, but that's exactly what the Liberals are doing. They've already decided for Canadians that one option isn't on the table, and they won't commit to giving Canadians a say in a referendum. Even if Canadians do want change, there's no consensus on what it should look like. All Canadians should get to make that choice. Why is the government scared to let Canadians choose in a referendum?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, if we want Canadians to trust that their votes really matter, we must be willing as members of Parliament to set aside party preoccupations and undertake a serious examination of the way elections work. We want to explore this issue in the right way. That means before taking action, we're going to engage in a thoughtful and thorough process about the various electoral reform options available. Unlike the previous government, we have every interest in making sure that the voices of Canadians are heard throughout this process.
Honourable member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
À Paris, les négociations achoppent sur les compensations pour les pays les plus vulnérables. Et qui bloque une entente sur cette question? La délégation canadienne, avec à sa tête le ministre de l'Environnement. Le Canada s'est même mérité 2 prix fossiles pour faire obstruction aux négociations. On se croyait encore à l'époque des conservateurs, Monsieur le Président. Est-ce que le gouvernement va arrêter de faire de l'obstruction, tenir ses promesses et travailler à ce qu'un accord soit enfin adopté?
Ministre des Affaires étrangères.
Monsieur le Président, mon collègue est mal informé. En fait, le Canada pousse à la roue pour avoir une entente robuste qui fera en sorte que l'humanité tout entière sera unie dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques. Et on peut être très fiers du rôle que joue le ministre de l'Environnement. Quel changement avec les 10 dernières années, Monsieur le Président?
New Westminster, Burnaby.
Well, with 2 fossil awards, they're catching up on the Conservatives pretty quickly, Mr. Speaker. Now, the draft Paris Agreement includes a commitment to, quote, limit temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius to significantly reduce risks and impacts. The NDP's targets would have meant Canada was finally doing its fair share. Conservative targets, which as of now are also liberal targets, will not get us there. So will this government commit to adopting ambitious new targets with real accountability? Or does the government just want to keep collecting fossil awards?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the international community is celebrating the role Canada is doing in Paris. We are playing a very positive role. We have been a lagger for the last 10 years, and now we are a leader, and we may be proud of it, and we may hope that we'll have a strong international agreement that will allow Canada to implement a very strong plan with the provinces to decrease greenhouse gas emissions and to make sure that Canada will do its share to fight climate change.
Monsieur le Président, un rapport nous apprend ce matin que le coût de service de garde est en hausse au pays. Ce sont les familles et les femmes qui en paient le prix. Au lieu de s'attaquer à ce problème, les libéraux ont choisi en priorité de donner une réduction d'impôts aux personnes bien nanties. Le nouveau gouvernement doit mettre ses priorités au bon endroit. Est-ce qu'il peut nous indiquer ce qu'il entend faire pour freiner l'augmentation des coûts de service de garde?
Mr. Speaker, as this is the first time I rise in the House, I want to thank the good people of Winnipeg South for placing their confidence in me and assure them I will work hard every day to earn that trust. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question from the Honourable Minister. In our platform, we committed to work with provinces, territories, and Indigenous communities to create a national early learning and child work framework in order to provide quality, affordable, flexible childcare for those that need it. Mr. Speaker, we'll be making more announcements in the coming days. Appreciate the member's question.
The honourable member for Churchill Kiwatanuk
Speaker,
Aski.
Canadian families are being squeezed by higher and higher childcare fees. Over the last year, the cost of childcare has increased 5 times the rate of inflation. Now, while the Prime Minister's childcare needs are covered thanks to Canadians, too many Canadians have nowhere to turn for theirs. So why is this government helping the wealthy and leaving so many Canadian families behind?
Why?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, again, I thank the honourable member for her question. Again, we will be working with the provinces, territories, and Indigenous communities to introduce a new early learning and child care framework. I would point out to the honourable member we will also be introducing the Canada Child Benefit. That will benefit 9 out of 10 families, more than the Conservative plan, Mr. Speaker, putting the money in the hands of families and lifting many more children out of poverty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, only 2 minutes after tweeting that he was enjoying learning about his files, the Transport Minister announced that he would not reopen the Toronto Island Airport Agreement. He completely ignored the fact that the airport handles over 2 million passengers each year. This decision impacted thousands of jobs across Canada and Bombardier's new C-Series aircraft program. Can the minister tell us how he made an evidence-based policy decision in just 2 minutes?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank the honourable member. Thank the honourable member for her question. The process that was underway dealt with a very complex issue around planning in the City of Toronto. The issue had significant debate within the City of Toronto, and significant numbers of reports were filed with City Council. If they reviewed those files, they'd understand that the decision was not merely about the airport, but about the entire waterfront, an investment this government is prepared to support and continue as we try to build a great city with a great waterfront and balance all the competing needs.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Huron-Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week we are welcoming the first Syrian families of the 25,000 government-sponsored refugees to Canada. So why is this government leaving Afghan refugee James Akam out in the cold? James served bravely alongside our troops in Afghanistan as an interpreter and now needs refuge in Canada. At a time when we are welcoming thousands, why is this government leaving Mr. Akam out in the cold after he showed tremendous service for this country?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and also his acknowledgement that this was indeed a wonderful evening last night, as it was. I neglected to mention, in addition to my federal colleagues, Kathleen Wynne was also there, the Premier of Ontario. And in answer to the question, that case is under active investigation by my department as we speak.
Honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Canada's east coast, the Arctic surf clam fishery is healthy and sustainable and exclusively controlled by only one company. Former Minister Gail Shea proposed that the fishery be increased and open to new entrants based on the scientific advice of DFO officials. This week, the town of Burin and the Cook Clam Group joined a growing list of municipalities and companies calling on the minister to allow new entrants into the fishery. I know that fisheries didn't warrant a mention in the throne speech, but what is the minister waiting for? When will he end the Arctic surf clam monopoly and help create these new jobs?
Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries.
Speaker, the decision with regard to fisheries opening and level of catch will be made based on sound science and in consultation with those whose livelihood depend on the fisheries. Managing fisheries based on robust scientific evidence is a priority for the government, and for the first time, I think Scientific and Biologic will be able to speak freely regarding when it comes to fisheries in ocean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now the member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored today to speak for the first time on behalf of the residents of North Okanagan. Mr. Speaker, the longer this minister waits, the longer the people of Atlantic Canada must wait for these new jobs. The Atlantic clams fishery represents real opportunity for real economic growth in this region. When will the minister follow through on the Conservative plan to support the new entrants, and why doesn't he act on that today?
Honorable secrétaire parlementaire au
Thank you,
ministre des
honourable
Pêches.
member, for the question again. Mr. Speaker, managing fisheries based on a robust and scientific evidence is a priority for the government, and that is why Minister have instructed the official to review recent decision in this fisheries and return with advice on way forward is consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré et d'Orléans.
Monsieur le Président, au dernier sommet de la francophonie à Dakar, le Canada et les chefs d'État et de gouvernement ont adopté une résolution exposant leur inquiétude face à la montée d'actes de terrorisme et un soutien indéfectible à la lutte contre le terrorisme. Alors que nos alliés dans le monde entier intensifient leur lutte contre l'État islamique, le Canada fait marche arrière en retirant nos CF-18. Est-ce que ce gouvernement libéral a aussi l'intention d'abandonner ses partenaires de la francophonie dans la lutte contre le terrorisme?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I also has repeatedly stated that we are continuing the fight against ISIS. And I am particularly concerned about the reach of ISIL into other regions, and in particular into other nations. And we'll be making sure that we work with our coalition partners to look at our intelligence, and so that we have the right capabilities and to be able to prevent future disasters that has taken place in the past. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, people in this country have left cable TV in record numbers in 2015, deciding instead on digital streaming devices like Netflix. Yes, unlike the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party over here believe in low taxes and giving Canadians a chance and a choice to watch TV. So why is it that we watch that the Liberals do not want to limit choice, in fact, want to tax? Streaming.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for offering me my first question as Parliamentary Secretary in the House. It's my pleasure to say, Mr. Speaker, that the government believes in an open internet where Canadians will have a choice as to what they would like to download and for the lawful content of their choice. So there is not a question as the honourable member's premise is quite false, and certainly this government believes in an open and a net neutral internet.
Monsieur le Président, en campagne électorale, les libéraux ont promis de réinvestir dans le logement social et abordable et de renouveler les ententes de subventions à long terme. Si rien n'est fait, à la fin du mois, 5 200 ménages au Québec vont perdre leurs subventions. En cette période du temps des fêtes, c'est inacceptable de laisser ces familles dans une telle angoisse. Est-ce que le gouvernement va nous indiquer s'il va réinvestir dans le logement social et abordable et renouveler les ententes de subventions à long terme telles que promis?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for her question. The government committed to a $20 billion infrastructure program that would emphasize social infrastructure, and that will include housing, renewing housing agreements, as the member mentioned, but also facilities for seniors, as well as early learning and childcare. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1.5 million Canadian families do not have adequate housing. Some families are waiting 10 years to get on social housing lists. Affordable housing agreements are about to expire. The Prime Minister's Parliamentary Secretary repeatedly promised through the campaign Liberals would spend $20 billion on affordable housing. But now it turns out that same money is going to cover all kinds of other priorities. Can the Parliamentary Secretary tell Canadians exactly how much the Liberal government will spend on affordable housing?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, again, I appreciate the question from the honourable member who I met for the first time this morning in the elevator. And, Mr. Speaker, I would just repeat what I said before. Our government has committed to $20 billion over the next 10 years in social infrastructure. A major element of that will be housing and the renewal of housing agreements, as has been mentioned. Mr. Speaker, we'll be announcing details of our housing program in coming days, and I look forward to the members' future interventions.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister stated during the campaign that a large percentage of small businesses were nothing more than tax havens for wealthy Canadians trying to evade taxes. The Minister of Small Business is now turning that statement into official government policy. How can the minister justify going after small and medium-sized business owners to pay for the finance minister's deficit?
Yes. The Minister of Small Business and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is both an honour and a privilege to stand in this House, and I would like to thank the good people of the riding of Waterloo for having me here. I will represent them. As Minister of Small Business and Tourism, I am committed to representing small businesses across this nation as well. I will be working closely with the Minister of Finance to ensure that our commitment to lower the tax burden on small businesses is fulfilled. Not only will we be doing that, we will be working with small businesses because we know that they are job creators, they are economic drivers of our nation, and we will continue to work with them wholeheartedly. And I look forward to working with them.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, the last Parliament passed my bill to end a Prohibition-era law that created interprovincial trade barriers against Canadian wine. Now, since then, Mr. Speaker, Manitoba, Nova Scotia, my home province of British Columbia have all embraced direct-to-consumer provincial shipping of Canadian wine. The Premier of Ontario continues to block interprovincial trade of wine. Will the Prime Minister, who campaigned with Kathleen Wynne, encourage her to support the free trade of Canadian wine and allow direct-to-consumer shipping?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada has undertaken an opportunity to encourage trade at all levels, especially internally, and so we will be working on this file very closely over the coming mandate, and we hope that we will be able to encourage more interprovincial trade.
Monsieur le Président, la décision du gouvernement d'abolir le péage sur le pont Champlain aura des conséquences financières de 3 à 5 milliards de dollars pour les 30 prochaines années. Monsieur le Président, c'est plus de 100 millions de dollars par année. Est-ce que le ministre de l'Infrastructure et des Collectivités peut nous dire si ce manque à gagner est inclus dans les prévisions du ministre des Finances ou va-t-il simplement s'ajouter au déficit qui n'en finit plus d'augmenter avec les libéraux?
Mr. Speaker, as part of our commitment to the province of Quebec as well as the regional municipalities in the area of Montreal, we are going to live up to commitment to make the new Champlain Bridge toll-free bridge. The current framework includes all the cost to build the bridge, to maintain it, and to run it. So everything is included in the current framework, and tolling revenue will have no impact on our framework.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, one of the first acts of this Liberal government was to approve the dumping of 8 billion litres of raw and untreated sewage into the St. Lawrence, one of Canada's most iconic waterways, in direct violation of Section 36 of the Fisheries Act. So much for their vaunted and phony commitments to science and the environment. Cities and municipalities downriver called it surprising, disgusting, and outrageous. Why did this minister overturn the order issued by our previous Conservative government and allow important fish habitat in the St. Lawrence to be polluted in direct violation of the Fisheries Act?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, it's my not first question as Parliamentary Secretary, but I will make sure that will be brief on that. I'll make sure that we look at this question for the member opposite, and we'll get back with an answer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Elmswood, Transcona.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Under the previous government, 20,000 Winnipeggers lost their door-to-door mail service, along with many others across the country. During the campaign, the Prime Minister promised to restore that service, but this government's been backpedaling ever since, and I was quite shocked, actually, to hear Winnipeg Liberal MPs in the Free Press this week say that people in our city are happy with the cuts. I'm wondering if the Minister for Public Services will explain to seniors and people living with disabilities struggling to stay in their family homes why the Prime Minister feels that promises made to them don't need to be kept, and when exactly he told her it would be okay to let them down.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that, and thank you, the honourable member, for that question. Canada's plan to convert door-to-door delivery has been suspended, but this government is committed to a review, and the review will ensure that Canada Post provides a high quality of service that Canadians expect at a reasonable price.
Let's review the commitments. Pendant la campagne électorale, le premier ministre est allé voir le maire de Montréal pour parler notamment de Post Canada. Debout, à ses côtés, il a dit clairement, et je cite, « Nous nous engageons à restaurer le service à domicile ». Fin de la citation. C'était sans équivoque et pour l'aide au gouvernement, c'est même enregistré. Maintenant, au pouvoir, par exemple, le gouvernement tient un autre discours et alimente le cynisme. Est-ce que le premier ministre va respecter son engagement solennel et rétablir le service de courrier à domicile?
Bravo.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Il y a présentement un moratoire sur l'installation des boîtes postales communautaires et nous sommes engagés à tenir une revue complète de Canada Post. Cette revue mobilisera toutes les Canadiennes à la grandeur du pays.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the great people of Nickel Belt for electing me as a member of Parliament. It's an honor and privilege to serve them and this House. Ma question, les fêtes de fin d'année sont souvent une période de désespoir et de solitude qui pourrait mener à de tragiques événements pour ceux et celles souffrant de problèmes de santé mentale sévères. Le ministre des Anciens combattants, pourrais-tu dire à la Chambre si le ministère, qu'est-ce que le ministère va faire pour aider les vétérans dans de telles circonstances?
L'honorable ministre des Anciens combattants.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from Nickel Belt for his dedication to veterans. This can be a difficult time for many Canadians, including veterans. I want veterans to know that our government is here to help. Veterans and their families can immediately reach a mental health professional by contacting Veterans Assistance Services 24 hours a day, 365. We'll be launching a social media campaign to promote this service and to highlight the importance of reaching out for help. I encourage all members of this House to spread the message and to support our veterans.
The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, residents of Northern Canada face punishing cost of living due to their remoteness and limited transportation. The Liberal campaign platform promised tax relief for residents of Canada Northern Zone through a 33% increase in allowable deductions for Northern residency. Mr. Speaker, Northerners expect that this important tax cut would apply to the 2000 tax year. Why is this government already ignoring Northern Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to say for the honourable member that we have made that commitment. We will be increasing the tax deduction for Northerners in the coming days. It's a welcome commitment that we made in the election, and it will be a welcome commitment today as implemented by our government. Thank you.
The honourable member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Revenue Agency current TD1 form for 2016 and the description of the Northern resident tax deduction currently show no increase to this important tax deduction. Will the minister take steps necessary to put in place to enhance Northern residents' tax deduction for the 2016 tax year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think all members in this House realize that Northerners have been left behind for a long time in this country. We know what the cost of living of Northerners are, and while it's been ignored for many years, it's something we're prepared to address. We have made that commitment, and we will honour it.
Hear, hear.
Honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the smoke from tobacco products is a deadly substance, and as a result, governments and NGOs from around the world have advocated for stricter regulation, especially for youth. Science has proven marijuana smoke has the same potential to cause harm. However, this Liberal government is blindly pushing forward with their marijuana plan at the expense of Canadians' health. Mr. Speaker, why won't the Health Minister embrace the science and abandon this risky plan? And as a family doctor, how can she support this?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to respond to this important question. We are all concerned with the health of Canadians, both young and old, and we are concerned with the health risks associated with smoking. As pertains to the issue of marijuana, however, we have lost the fight, and the current approach to marijuana is not working. Results this week have revealed that record numbers of amounts of marijuana are being used by our youth. Our government plans to implement legislation to address that, and so that we can keep marijuana out of the hands of children and youth.
Very good.
Honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In July, the Conservative government was proud to commit $1.53 billion to the largest public transit infrastructure project in the history of Calgary. The Green Line LRT project will double the rail network and cut commute times in half for my constituents. Today, the Calgary City Council will be debating the funding model in order to kick off construction by 2017. Will the government honour this Conservative commitment, support Mayor Nenshi and the City of Calgary to get Calgarians moving again?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the previous government announced $14 billion for infrastructure. Out of that, $1 billion was allocated for Alberta. Unfortunately, very little has been delivered so far. Right? We are committed to doubling our infrastructure funding to $225 billion, and I will be working very closely with the Mayor of the Calgary and my honourable colleague to meet those commitments.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, during the election, the Liberals promised to finally end criminalising Canadians for simple possession of marijuana. This government could have taken immediate action, but has not. No details, no timeline for decriminalising marijuana possession, no commitment to expunge the record of hundreds of thousands of Canadians convicted for simple possession. And thousands are still unfairly facing possible arrest, tying up the police and our justice system. Why hasn't this government taken any action to legalize simple possession of marijuana?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend from Victoria for his important question. In order to protect our kids from the ravages of marijuana, to make our communities safer, to reduce the social and health harms associated to its use, our government has committed to legalize, regulate, and restrict access to marijuana. And in order to do so, we will be establishing a federal, provincial, territorial task force to design a strict sales and distribution system with appropriate health concerns. This will be done in partnership with our provincial and territorial partners and with stakeholders right across this country.
Monsieur le Président, déjà, ce nouveau gouvernement déçoit de nombreux Québécois. Recul sur Poste Canada, recul sur le Fonds de travailleurs, recul sur le français, contestation de la loi sur les soins de fin de vie. Pour en rajouter, cette semaine, la ministre du Patrimoine ne s'est pas prononcée sur la vente de la maison de Radio-Canada. Or, le Conseil des ministres devra valider la décision. Monsieur le Président, l'avenir de la production interne en français est en péril. Le ministre a-t-elle réellement l'intention d'approuver l'abandon de la maison de Radio-Canada?
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci de la question de mon honorable collègue. Je remercie également les citoyens d'Edmonton Centre de m'avoir amené ici à la Chambre. Monsieur le Président, La ministre a pris cette situation en fonction et c'est clair que CRC Radio-Canada est une corporation à part du gouvernement du Canada et lorsque nous sommes pleinement informés, nous allons informer la membre sur cette question très importante. Merci.
Honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We introduced the universal child care benefit because we realized the value of giving back to all Canadian kids, regardless of mom and dad's income. Lower income earners, absolutely, lower income earners would receive more benefits, and higher income earners would receive fewer benefits. But, Mr. Speaker, all Canadian families would benefit, whereas the Liberal plan only applies to some income earners. Why is the Liberal government supportive of only some Canadian families and not all Canadian families?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to introducing tax measures that help those Canadians that need them most. Our introduction of the Canada Child Benefit, which will be considered in our next budget, will help 9 out of 10 Canadian families and will raise hundreds of thousands of children in poverty out of a very difficult situation. We're proud of what we're doing for those Canadians who are most vulnerable.
Honourable member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, the government has only a short period of time to respond to the Supreme Court's deadline on assisted suicide. While consulting with individuals and organizations within my riding and from across the country, the community of persons with disabilities has expressed to me that they are very concerned. Specifically, they want to know that the most vulnerable among us will be protected. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all Canadians with disabilities, I ask the Minister, how will she ensure the right to choose life will be protected for those who have a disability?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows, the issue of physician-assisted dying is a sensitive and complex one. Our government will follow through on our commitment to consult broadly on this issue, and we will be introducing a parliamentary committee in order to do so. We also look forward to the report of the external panel, which we expect next week, which will report on a number of consultations that have already taken place. And I look forward to working with my colleague, the Minister of Justice, in responding to this very important issue.
Honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I speak for the first time in this House, I'd like to thank the great people of Souris Moose Mountain. Mr. Speaker, On the Podium was created by our Conservative government and has supported our athletes and contributed to their success. Can the Minister of Sport assure Canadian athletes as they prepare for the Rio Olympics that their funding will not be on the chopping block as the Liberals look for ways to contain their runaway deficits?
The Honourable Minister of Sport.
Member for that very important question. As a former athlete who represented Canada and stood on the podium proudly, I can assure this House that we think of athletes at the core of every decision we make. As part of our ongoing due diligence and our quest for accountability, transparency, and the effective use of public funds, we are looking at our entire targeted excellence strategy, including our support to Own the Podium. The fact is that athletes and coaches know that we have to review our game plan on an ongoing basis. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do the best for our athletes, and they're going to represent us proudly next summer in Rio.
Monsieur le Président, la crise des réfugiés syriens a rassemblé des citoyens canadiens et des groupes communautaires qui font tous d'importantes contributions afin d'aider la plus grande crise humanitaire depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. C'est un projet véritablement national. Les entreprises canadiennes font également preuve d'énorme générosité au fin de ce projet. Le ministre de l'Immigration, des Réfugiés et de la Citoyenneté peut-il informer cette Chambre au sujet de la contribution des entreprises canadiennes en ce qui a trait aux efforts de rétablissement?
Ministre de l'Immigration.
J'aimerais remercier ma collègue de Moncton Riverview Dieppe pour cette question et je suis ravi d'annoncer que le CN et son président du Conseil, Robert Pace, a établi le standard platine pour les dons d'entreprises grâce à un don de 5 millions de dollars pour le logement des réfugiés syriens. Oui, Monsieur le Président, 5 millions de dollars. La générosité de tous les Canadiens veillera au succès de ce projet national qui nous rend tous fiers.
The honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal plan for electoral reform without a referendum has been universally panned in the media. For example, the Toronto Star states, quote, "The government's approach displays unprecedented arrogance." The Star is right for the following reason. If first past the post gives false mandates, as the Liberals claim, then surely winning 39% of the vote under first past the post gives the Liberals a mandate to put options before Canadians, but nothing more. It is Canadians themselves who must make the final choice, and only a referendum represents a true mandate for any particular change to the present system. Isn't that so, Mr. Speaker?
The Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it's essential that we begin a conversation with Canadians and parliamentarians about how we're going to bring our voting system into the 21st century. And that's why we're bringing forward historic changes to the electoral system. We're going to engage Canadians in an open and transparent dialogue, and those in this House, the government has no intention of prejudicing that debate, and we have every interest that all voices be heard. I hope that all my colleagues across the aisle will join us in this effort.
The honourable member for Willowdale. Member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian is a positive and optimistic plan for the future that will provide economic growth by investing in jobs and lowering taxes for the middle class. When middle-class Canadians have more money in their pockets to save, invest, and grow the economy, we all benefit. Could the Honourable Minister of Small Business and Tourism please inform this House of the actions the government will take to help small businesses?
Small business and tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for the great question. I look forward to working with all honourable members of this House and Canadians across the nation to ensure small businesses are represented. Small businesses are drivers of the economy. They employ 90% of the private sector workforce and account for about 40% of the GDP. Our government will support them. We will support them to be more productive, innovative, and export-oriented. And we are committed to lowering the tax burden for small businesses, and I will be working closely with the Minister of Finance to ensure that happens. Thank you.
The member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday when answering a question, the Minister of Global Affairs mocked and laughed at the notion of muzzling officials, but that's exactly what he's doing. Wow. The Office of Religious Freedom has received international praise for promoting Canada's role in addressing religious freedom around the globe. Religious minorities and other countries are depending on Canada to take, actually, Mr. Speaker, to keep the lead on this issue that is so important to so many persecuted minorities. Why is this minister muzzling the Ambassador of Religious Freedom? Is this a prelude to shutting down the office?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague has wrong information. It is his government that was muzzling officials. We don't do that. To the contrary, we have encouraged our officials to speak in order to help the government to go through its mandate. And part of our mandate is to protect the freedom of religion, as all freedoms, to do it proudly and strongly as Canada should be.
Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement forme présentement un comité qui étudiera la question qui aura probablement le plus sollicité les passions au Québec au cours des dernières années, mourir dans la dignité. L'Assemblée nationale du Québec a d'ailleurs adopté une résolution unanime sur cette question. Dans sa lettre mandat transmise à son leader, le premier ministre lui demande de s'assurer que les députés soient en mesure de bien représenter leurs électeurs. Si le leader juge important d'ajouter un député du troisième parti sans droit de vote et 5 sénateurs non élus sur ce comité, comment peut-il justifier d'exclure un élu du Bloc québécois qui compte 10 députés élus pour représenter plus d'1 million de Québécois?
Honorable député du gouvernement en Chambre.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie mon honorable collègue pour sa question. Je suis un peu surpris qu'il pose parce que j'étais assez fier ce matin que cette Chambre a adopté unanimement, Monsieur le Président, une motion pour créer un comité mixte avec nos collègues au Sénat pour étudier cette question si importante. Alors, je remercie tous les députés dans la Chambre pour leur consentement unanime pour qu'on puisse avancer cette question importante et d'ailleurs être inspiré par le leadership de la province du Québec.
L'honorable député de Montcalm.
Monsieur le Président, comme l'a constaté le leader du gouvernement, le Bloc québécois est favorable à la mise sur pied d'un comité spécial sur le suicide assisté. L'Assemblée nationale, elle, avait eu la sagesse de faire le débat sur le mourir dans la dignité d'une manière non partisane, en invitant des élus de toutes les formations politiques et à faire partie de la commission itinérante sur la question. Qu'est-ce qui empêche le leader du gouvernement qui prétend au réel changement et vouloir actualiser une réforme des institutions démocratiques et parlementaires de constituer ce comité avec une approche transpartisane?
Honorable leader du gouvernement en Chambre.
Encore là, Monsieur le Président, le fait que le comité a été établi unanimement par la Chambre, la motion a été très claire quant au membership du comité. Alors moi, je suis un peu surpris de voir mon collègue s'inquiéter quant à la participation de certains députés, parce que, comme j'ai dit tantôt, la motion unanimement adoptée a été très précis quant à la composition du comité, et j'espère que nos collègues du Sénat vont se joindre à nous dans les prochaines heures pour participer dans cet engagement historique, Monsieur le Président.
Monsieur le Président, le Bloc québécois fait preuve de bonne volonté ce matin en donnant son consentement à la motion pour la formation du comité sur l'aide médicale à mourir. Je siège ici depuis 30 ans, Monsieur le Président. Plusieurs fois, des comités spéciaux furent formés concernant des dossiers délicats ou moraux, et cette honorable Chambre cherchait toujours à joindre toutes les formations politiques à ce comité afin de trouver les consensus les plus larges. Je demande donc, Monsieur le Président, respectueusement au leader du gouvernement s'il est prêt à reviser la composition du comité en discutant avec les autres leaders pour permettre à un député du Bloc de siéger sur le comité sans droit de vote, seulement le droit de parole. Est-ce trop, Monsieur le Président?
Honorable leader du gouvernement en Chambre.
Encore là, Monsieur le Président, mes collègues vont peut-être voir dans cette situation une certaine frustration qui j'espère, n'a absolument rien à voir avec le contenu de la motion adoptée unanimement par la Chambre des communes. Vous savez très bien, Monsieur le Président, que nous voulons consulter tous les Canadiens d'une façon absolument appropriée et responsable. Ma collègue, la ministre de la Justice, est engagée à le faire et j'espère, quand le projet de loi ultimement sera déposé dans cette Chambre, tous les députés vont participer dans le débat robuste pour remplacer des mesures que la Cour suprême a jugées comme étant non constitutionnelles. Et comme j'ai dit tantôt, Monsieur le Président, nous sommes inspirés par le...
La période de questions est maintenant terminée.